Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to my very first weekly AI Whisperers class with Arpita Gandhi and myself. I'm so psyched about something. This is something we've been working on for really over a year. And after a couple of students recently who passed their exam told us that, oh, there's no comparison. The exams that you guys are creating, that you're going to learn how to create here. Yeah. With the AIs are just so much closer to the real exam. So come on, let's just do it. In fact, if Arbor admitted you were a little bit hesitant. Oh, I don't know that people want to learn this. They just, they get confused. They want to take their CISSP. But you heard the last students just saying, no, the other exams were not like the real one, only the. So we're doing it. All right. So we're going to do this every Friday for 2 hours. And mostly we have the pay versions. And that's important to know because there are some behavior differences in both the model you get and the context window, the memory. But that being said, even with the free versions, it's pretty amazing. So we use the pay of ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. And then if you have a Facebook account, you get access to Meta AI, which is the first of the open source to really hit the thing. And it's actually quite good as well. So we'll look at some of that. Quick introduction to artificial intelligence and just a brief overview. First of all, that name is terrible. The name artificial intelligence makes people think it's like artificial sweetener. Can't this cause cancer? Or when are we going to find? No, it's just automation. That's my dear friend Ralph H. Mandia, the Hollywood hacker. He uh, he he shrugs his head all the time, and so does every AI scientist I know. I've been a member of Ray Kurzweil's Singularity University since 2017, and he just in his newest book, The Singularity is Nearer, came out in July, said the same thing. The term conjures up some mystic. Ooh, let's demystify it. It's automating a lot of things. It is very powerful. It's like fire. If you think fire is coming from whatever, an ancient mouth-breathing dragon or something, then you're mystified. But if you understand that fire's, the natural thing, you can study it and handle it properly because it is very, very powerful. And many people in the United States today still don't do it right. And while we're having this conversation, unfortunately, a lot of people are getting burnt on fires on average every 5 minutes, and someone's going to die every 2 hours or so. So it is important to manage this properly. I don't want you to take it light, but don't make it like it's artificial intelligence. It could kill us later on. I'm not really worried about that. Right, so I started in the 90s with the expert systems. I would train for Wang Laboratories, optical character recognition, where you build up a knowledge base of the various font types that you'll use, and then eventually when you scan in a document, the computer could artificially intelligent convert that to a text. I know what that's a letter A, and I understood. It's just automating certain things. I wasn't impressed. I did get impressed really a lot when AlphaGo, and then later AlphaGo Zero, but AlphaGo played the game of Go against the world's best Go player, Lee Sedol. And for every, if you're not familiar, there's like a square and you put a piece on it, but the piece that you put on it could be black or white, could be yin or yang, could be one or zero, but it could also be empty. So it's not two to the n with classical bits, it's three to the n. And so that's a large number basically of options. No computer in the world has that much memory that it can sit there and figure out every possible option. But it taught itself how to play, developed intuition, and beat the guy. And that was pretty crazy. It actually played every Atari video game just being told, see that number up there, the score? You have to try to make that higher. And it learned with no training. So that blew me away. Now, that's not exactly what we're going to be playing with. We're playing with LLMs, the large language models that are pre-trained. They're pre-trained on the entire internet. So there's a lot of words being used on the internet in all kinds of contexts, including every ISO document that's they could find their way through. I have to pay for them. They seem to like aggregate. Yeah, but somebody printed one page of it here and one page there. I got it. Yeah. Every NIST publication, everything, every Shakespeare thing that's ever been published. And then transform. They're transformers. So that means when when we put in a question or a prompt or give it a task, do this, it understands what we're saying. Probably better than the way we word it. In fact, sometimes it'll do something wrong and you go, you know what? I worded that wrong. I can see why you thought that was true. Right? So but they of course make mistakes and we're going to talk about how to get these guys on track and how to watch for them. It's like when you let your car go, you want to check the alignment of your car, you let the tires go. Well, you want to see how what happens when these things go. Um, but they will then transform into an answer, and they're actually pretty good. Yeah. They're also, though, these pictures are not language models. They're actually other objects. They're graphic models. So Ray Kurzweil this year coined a new term, uh, and it's called large object models. Some people will just call them multimodal right now. Is a good term for like DALL-E doing image generation. But let's look at the context of what we do as a CISSP and all our information security guys. We're doing governance. We're helping people steer their ship, their car, whatever. Risk is unforeseen danger, literally from the Greek, the cliffs under the water that you can't see when you're steering your ship, and compliance that you're not the only guy with a ship in the water and somebody else is where you want to be. Do you mind waiting in line? You're not supposed to, whatever, bring your shipping for whatever a restaurant supply through the front door. You got to go to the loading dock. So the various rules that we have to do so we can work together with others. So that's governance, risk, and compliance. And technology has been helping us. One of the most important things that they developed in shipping to deal with risk, to mitigate hitting these cliffs underwater, was the telescope. Telescope gave us 10 times and more better vision. We could see that cliff much further out. It's a no-brainer, right? Bring a telescope. But it didn't align with everyone's values. The Pope heard that if you look through the telescope, Galileo said, no, you're going to find out that Earth isn't the center of the solar system. And that didn't align with their values. We got an alignment problem here. So they locked up Galileo. They forced him to take it back, even though the facts are facts, because they just couldn't handle it. But no ship captain. The ship captains of those days did not really fall under the Pope. They were mostly out at sea. If you don't know, you're like the king of your company, of your country when you're a few miles out at sea. They were just privateers, private shipping companies. They were pirates, did not care what the Pope said about telescope. They were bringing telescopes. It's also with our electronic communication in general. One of the first laws, the very first electronic law in the United States was after the Titanic went down and Marconi had just patented a radio. And they were like, hey, thanks to the radio, 700 of those passengers were able to live because they were able to radio for help. If we had radios on ships all the time, we would mitigate hitting these cliffs. He could have gotten the news about the ice in the water. And so that's a preventive thing. And then if there is something, you could then, respond quicker. It became a law. It's so technology like telescopes and radios have been risk mitigating technologies. And now we have AI. If you don't bring a telescope and a radio on your ship today, you're negligent. And I feel if you don't use AI today, you're negligent as well. There's one thing, if we didn't have it, I'm not going to blame you, but now that it's there. Now, the risks that you see from AI are always two basic things. Control. We can't control them. I can't control these pictures half the time. It's like, no, 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 he's not wearing a Star Trek outfit in this. He's supposed to have the Internet Defense logo or for whatever thing they do. The other one is bias, and bias is what we have right now. We don't have general intelligence. We have AIs that are biased toward something. They're very limited in their understanding of opinion-based information. For instance, ChatGPT probably cares about Sam Altman's opinion more than it does mine. So that's what we're working toward. And Kurzweil argues we will have an unbiased general AI by 2029. So this is our 5-year mission. Now, these LLMs, one of the best uses of them are absolutely taking the exam. One of the most important things when you take your exam is to have practice questions. You got to give it, because I don't care if you know it, you got to understand the way it's worded. These LLMs search the internet. They look at every sample thing, every Reddit comment. Yeah, no, they were asking me more like this, and then they formulate these questions. It's amazing. And they're up to date. They're not going to ask you anything that's not associated with the 2024 exam. They're not going to give you questions from 20 years ago that everybody else just thinks is there for some reason. So it's pretty awesome. Now, nobody's perfect. They're going to make mistakes. There's mistakes in my book too, in my practice exams. And when there are, what do I do? Write a letter to the ISACA. I don't agree with your answer. Here, you go, I don't agree with it. And you'll get in an argument with it. I've I've guesstimated that I'm winning 20% of these arguments. I'm losing 80%, but I learn on every one of them. And that's what I want you guys to do too. If a waiter brings you food, don't just immediately trust it. In fact, if it doesn't smell right, here's your whatever, and you go, that doesn't smell like whatever vanilla ice cream to me. They make mistakes, and you say to that all the time, are you sure? You know what I didn't do is a quick introduction to us, and I'm sorry. Arpita's just been typing, and I've been feeling so guilty. Arpita joined me earlier this year. It's been a miracle. She's helped me align with so many current updates. If you could thank that all the content outline stuff is all Arpita going, Larry, that's not true anymore. She's taken over all my application security stuff because she's so much better versed in that. Arpita, please say something about yourself.
Thank you, Larry. No, I was just, we letting you proceed. I think it's a very interesting topic and a very cool type of class that we're introducing here. It's a lot of exam practice the right way with the, correct scope. We just, like you mentioned, had a student who passed this week after taking our boot camp last week. And he mentioned that the first 25 to 30 questions that he got were exactly like what he practiced using the LLMs. And why that is significant is because how you start is very important for your CISSP because it's an adaptive test. So the first half or the first 30, 40 questions really set the tone for what you can expect later on. And I just wanted to call out how important it is and how generous you are with your time, Larry, because I know we had to move things around for our schedule to incorporate this series. So we're very excited. But again, my name is Arpita. Most of you know me. I'm new to Nate and Srinivas. Nick, I apologize. And Srinivas, we had a quick chat yesterday. So if you have any questions, if you need any help, if you want to inquire about our programs, please reach out to me. Do not hesitate. I'm usually always on. So let me know if you have any questions. A little bit about myself. I have about 20 years of experience in the industry in project program management, security. I worked in Citigroup's CISO office for about 8 years under various portfolios, managed identity and access governance initiatives. So I am familiar with most of the concepts here. Not a packet analyst like Larry, but I do enjoy that a little bit once in a while.
That's often way down in the weeds, and people are like, Larry, can we stay up at a more management scope? So I appreciate that you're not down in the weeds, but you are where users touch the application, and often that's much more important. And again, I always say in my development life cycle that the first step is who. And if you get that wrong, nothing else matters, and you have a lot of experience in identity and access management. So very, very good. We complement each other. If you only sat my class before, it's a whole new thing. Larry's much more aligned with these standards and stuff now. There is a quick thing. I just want to address one question here. So Bhavesh asked, could these bias in AI models be the way they are trained and the data? Well, we hope. So that's a big problem. In my other class, we'll get much deeper, but bias can come from two areas. We hope that it's mostly the training data. We would like to think that, for instance, the most famous one was probably Amazon had a hiring AI that was just to screen resumes. And it only after 3 months became obvious had a pattern of never hiring any women, and over 90+% were European males. And that was a training data. That's what they told us. But suppose it was in the algorithm. Suppose somebody just, no, I want the algorithm to always think that men are more important than women. And around the world, you might get most people to vote on that. I don't know. It's most men anyway. So it's either training data, and in which case we just give it more data, but it might be algorithmic. I would love to see a Nessus scanner tool that could populate your algorithm with distributed like ISO data. The ISO is from Afghanistan to Zimbabwe, where we get everybody's opinion. And then C, do I still identify any algorithmic bias? So, but a great question, great question. And
And what I'll add, especially for the CISSP prep, Bhavesh, you can specify the sources that you want the LLMs to review and refer to. So if you want to say that you want to base your, something off of NIST or ISO standards or whatever, then you can put that in your prompt. And then you can, if you want to do an extra check, you can also ask it to list the source when it puts the question in there. And it does a really good job of, where and how it picked the question. So if you want to do an extra check and make sure that you are not like getting a question based off of somebody's Reddit response, then you can actually ask it to list the
yeah, and
source.
you're going to see throughout. We'll look at it today in the second half. We're going to the first half. I'm just mostly introductory. The second half, we're going to do a lot of these tests, and you're going to see how to keep it on track. So the secret sauce, if I put this up on YouTube, is not that Harry already shared the prompt. Who needs him? No, the secret sauce is learning how to train your dragon. So that's what we'll get into today. Thank you, Arpita.
Thank
All right. So again, the whole purpose of the CISSP is to help assist in governance, risk, and compliance in this modern world to serve the common good, because we have so many great things keep being invented every day, but we also have so many problems, and we should be able to solve them with these things as long as we avoid these risks, or deal with them when they do happen. And if you don't know my class, if you've never been in my class, my mother taught me that every word comes from the Greek, at least every English word. By the way, for those of you, since I know we have a few Indian people in my class, I have done some research, and there is an argument to be made that the Greeks and the Indians at ancient communicated, and there are similar words in like Tamil to ancient Greek. But let's move on. So the history of governance and risk compliance in modern terms was not Greece. It was actually Lloyd's of London Insurance probably hit it. And if you know anything about the Dutch East India Tea Company, what happened in the 1400s, something happened in shipping, just a little technical advancement that ships had, Portugal had invented this sail type of that triangle on the front. And that was a revolution. You used to just sail only if the wind was at your back and you hugged the coast. You didn't go out to sea too much. But with this thing, you could go long journeys, and they were going to the Americas, and they were going to China, and they were mixing products from all over. Now they were doing some horrible biased things. We know that. But let's look at well, for one thing, Catherine Braganza of Portugal, who was married to King Charles of England, mixed sugar from the Americas with tea from China. And that's like the first, drug a lot of our play is still the drug industry, right? That's one of the drug companies. That was China's tea company. That was the first time they got caffeine over there. That lit Europe on fire. Everybody within 2 weeks, everybody's wife in the aristocracy wanted tea and sugar, and they launched this thing. I call it the drink that launched 1,000 ships, and they developed a process. So it's really the birth of the stock market too. Instead of one guy putting all his money in a ship, and if it went down, they were very risky. You'd get like 30% of your ships would make it. Instead, he'd put his money in 100 ships, and 100 men would do that. And then if one of them goes down, they share the loss. And that's the birth of the stock market. But in order for them to, they wanted to trust that the ship would not, and that depends on, first of all, is the ship right? Are those sales good, the technology on the ship, and is the staff trustworthy? And they created this certification process that we still do. That's the birth of the ISA. And what we do in CISSP, we try to, and let me put this down to one. Um, I'm only showing Bobish. Hold up there. Sorry. I will pin myself for a second. There we go. All right. So what they would do is have a third party, just like when you take your exam, your CISSP, you go to Pearson VUE. They're validators. Pearson VUE's job is to validate you, a third party validation that will certify, and they would certify the staff. And today, that's an ISO certification. 17024. When you the CISSP is the very first uh, IT cert to make that. Very first security cert to be 24. And if you're you're studying for this, you know that your organization, just like the ship, has to be certified if you want to be, doing international business. And the technology on your ship, that has to be certified. So that's the birth of it. So this AI stuff can help us get all of this stuff right. And again, this artificial eye provides real intelligence. It's not artificial intelligence, it's artificially gathered. Now, do you see stuff through a telescope that might not be there? No, it's a smudge on it. That could happen. Simpson fans, when there was an ant on the thing, he thought it was an alien invasion. Whatever. So sometimes there's mistakes, but don't think of it as artificial intelligence. It's important. It's helping us. It's a detective control, right? We were able to now see further out, avoid hitting the cliffs in the first place. Very, very good. Try telling management that sometimes. In our centrally managed world, it's really hard. It's not a very agile change. We need to ensure, and when we talk about the alignment problem, I think the biggest alignment problem is aligning people with data, because people tend to throw out data and just go with, that's not what, I heard when I was a kid. Sorry about that. The fundamental risks again are control. And we're going to talk more about control. Like, I can't control these things perfectly. I can't. I've had to redo pictures sometimes 10 times to get the picture to come out right. If you're a Star Trek fan, there was a very famous episode about that. I Am Nomad, an AI went out of control, and it thought, while its job was it was like an antivirus software, but it started seeing humans as viruses. Today, that's known as the paperclip problem. The paperclip problem is an alignment problem. That if this thing thinks its only job is to build paperclips, eventually it'll start to use people. Until 2029, it's assumed all we have are narrow AIs, and they are biased. Hopefully, the bias doesn't hurt us too much. You know who has the best AIs in the world? It's not probably China versus US. It's probably the ones with all the money, Wall Street. And their critical success factor, the major, how much money are we making for our investors? I don't care about anything else. They have killed off, they estimate 68% of all vertebrae on this planet in this less than 60 years I've been alive. That's messed up. So we have to have more metrics of what equals success than just money. But remember, or if you haven't been in my class, when I was born, the world itself didn't have that much money. If you shared all of it with everybody equally, we'd all be poor. Today, we'd all be rich. Today, more people die of obesity than starvation. So we just need to work it out logically, and AI will be more logical than other people. Basic narrow AI problems. We've all seen this. You call the help desk and you got 5 buttons. If you want this, if you want that, you want that. And you're like, I want something else. We've all seen. But let's talk about control. Let's go back to Ray Kurzweil and his theories here. When I was a kid, it was pretty good. Dolly did something pretty good. I said, I want you to make it like 19, and it was supposed to be 72. That's when I was building a lot of my go-karts. I would have been 11 years old. After that, I probably, 10, 11 years old, I was into building. You'd find baby cart wheels in the trash or some baby, I mean, you just rip it out and you go home and you get some nails and you make this cart and you go right down. This is Broad and Windham Avenue where I grew up. It's a very busy street. And what do you do to control when you govern? In my car, I've got a steering wheel, the same with the ship. Ship doesn't have brakes. I made a steering wheel. It was actually a rope on a piece of wood that you'd pull. You know, it wasn't the most accurate thing. And a brake was just a stick that rubbed up against the wheel. You were probably, if it was really bad, just jump off. Let it hit whatever it was about to go into, you know. You know what it would never do? Learn to control itself. Ray Kurzweil, using Moore's Law in 2005, predicted where we are now. Most people thought he was crazy. Now people are saying, in fact, I didn't even turn it on yet. There's a new video out by the co-founder of Singularity University that thinks we're already there. But whatever the case is, Kurzweil's been saying that 2029, I've taken 3 of his classes alone this year alone. We hit artificial general intelligence. How do we control something that we can't control that well now while it's dumber? But then it gets as smart as us, and guess what happens 18 months later? It's twice as smart as human level. This knee of the curve that we live in right now, the most dynamic upheaval in human history. Our job as CISSPs, I believe, is to get the here securely. After this, I trust the AIs to come up with better options. Up until then, the AIs are going to make narrow mistakes. No, that's a good thing. Don't stop that. As a security guy, I'll stick with SIM for here. I'm trusting SOAR after that. Now, really, I think after that, after 2029, the biggest risk is convincing people. I don't care. Ain't no way. I don't believe in Darwin. We ain't come from no monkey. I'm afraid that you're probably wrong. You know, just like the Pope was wrong. And so that I think is the big risk. It's the human risk. I am not worried that AI is going to, I think humans are bad. We're going to kill them. That's the problem. It's the Terminator. Why? If AI is fire, data is oil, and dead humans aren't going to provide any data. No, I think they will treat every living thing with a great amount of respect and come up with very logical solutions to problems twice, 4 times, 16 million times smarter than humans. And so does the founder of Singularity Net. I love this guy. I love their push. Almost everybody I've met, I've been to a couple of their conferences this year as well. I've known Ben or known of him since I can't even remember, but in 2016 I became a huge fan again and rediscovered. And I totally believe that what he says that if it's really open source and decentralized, it's not run by whatever Elon Musk. It's run by all of us. The 8 billion people opinions count to eliminate that bias and it's open source and everybody can know what's in there. I'm allergic to that now. It'll help us solve some of the biggest problems, lead to a golden age. It's a tool that's going to help us, and that's where I'm at. We just got to make sure the Pope doesn't try to kill anybody or whatever. Yeah, and after that, I'd much rather speak to a chat bot. All right, now I keep using the Federation. I'm an old Star Trek fan, but it is the ISO. That's the ISO's job. They are like the Federation. ISO is not an acronym, though chosen to look like one. It actually comes from the Greek, as my mom would say, and it means equal. From Afghanistan to Zimbabwe, we treat each other equally because that's the only way to avoid the bias problems of AI. We're on this precipice of a brand new golden age. It's real. You know, this isn't a dream. And the fix is to fix the bias. Don't worry about the control. We got no chance to control it. But if we could fix the bias, we really can make a better world for everybody. And what is the CISSP's primary goal in the code of ethics? To protect the common good. All right. So How can we get to our CISSP, Larry? Oh, yeah, you're going to through prompt engineering. All right. So first of all, when you talk to a prompt or talk to an AI, it's said to be called prompting. The most important prompt element is to tell it what to do. Then after that, you can give it context stuff. Now, you don't have to use these words. Sometimes you just type train of thought, whatever. But I like to start off with some of these anytime I really want to get aligned, you know. So I don't always use all of them. Now, one of my favorites though is constraints. In the requirements analysis of anything, we know in information security as a CISSP that people want functionality and assurance. What you mostly do is I want these functions, but don't do this. And then some other things for my bias. All right. So these are some basic guidelines. You can find ones that work for you better, whatever. You get better by playing with it. But overall, some tips that I've learned. Less is more. Sometimes I'll ask the AI to rewrite my prompt, and they'll rewrite it really long with redundancies in there that I'm like, do you really need to say all that? And you'll remove it and it works better. They don't even know what they want sometimes. So again, they're not going to replace us. You're going to form a symbiotic relationship with your assistants here. You're going to know what they're good at and what they're not good at. You're going to know what you're good at, what you're not good at, and what they can help. And again, they will go off the track. You let go of that wheel, the car's going to steer off. It's eventually going to hit the side. So you got to be ready to tap it. And sometimes I'll ask it to, generate pictures or whatever, and it 15 in a row. That's fantastic. You got it right. Sometimes right from the beginning, it just goes off. And then sometimes in the chat, you're like, nah, right. You got to remember to put that. And that'll work. And sometimes you got to remember to put that and don't do this. And it keeps doing the thing you said don't do. In fact, it'll do it 10 times. You're like, no, don't put a Star Trek logo in there. Okay, here's it without the logo. And it gives you 10 of them. You're like, no. So sometimes it's better to just start a new chat session. You're going to lose the context. So when you have a chat, each chat has a limited amount of context memory. Chat GPT can have some memories about you that you can manage that are cross chats. And that's why it's still my favorite right now. But the memory lengths vary and it will affect performance. After a while, you'll notice they're getting slower and slower. You know what? I'm just starting a new one. All right. Now, when the memories fail, just like a human, if someone has a long story and you start forgetting what they're talking about, you tend to remember the beginning of the story and the end, but you forgot all those details in the middle. And when they make mistakes and you're not sure and you're having an argument, use the other LLMs. Hey, Gemini thinks this is right. When I did my CISSP update this year, I used Gemini primarily because I was using ChatGPT in the background to do graphics for another project at the same time, a little multitasking. But I had Claude ready anytime I disagreed with Gemini. And I lost a lot of debates with that. First of all, do you really think they're going to cover that on the new exam? Yeah, it is. Like, I don't believe it. Claude Gemini, it says this is on the new exam. He goes, no, that would be on the new exam. Actually, that's and, holy cow. Okay. But that stuck in my brain, just like our recent test taker. When I sat down for my exam, everything looked like what I'd seen. That's why I got so like, all right, what it's over. Every Gemini had already prepared me. I went through my exam this year, April 16th, the day after the new one came out, and I was done in 45 minutes. All right, so here's our prompt. And I'm going to give you access to this, and we'll cut and paste it the rest of the today's session. All right, so the task, generate the exam. Right? Blah, 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 blah. I see I got a question here. Yeah, something like that. Yep. All right. So, well, no, we got two sessions and I want you to play with it. Sorry. So here's my task. I want you to do it and make sure it's aligned. Sometimes, and only Gemini actually, It wasn't a couple times, and I just take the PDF, the official content outline. I go upload that, and I go make sure it's aligned, and then everything went better. So there are other tricks and tips you could do to if they don't seem to go right from the start. The exam should include scenario and knowledge base that are fully aligned. 50% are scenario, 50% are knowledge base, and oh, this one I didn't put it in there. I want them to randomize. I have a newer prompt here, a newer update, so we can play with that if we don't find them randomized. Each question should offer four multiple choice, two answers demonstrably wrong. It's easy to flush those. Um, but the remaining two answers should be partially correct, with one is just better. Don't always look for the right answer. Remember, when you take a CISSP or any exam, look for the best of the four. That's all. Each exam, one question at a time. Wait for my selection. Gemini forgets that a lot, and you have to go, hey, you're supposed to wait. Oh, yes, I was supposed to wait. Before revealing. After each answer, provide a detailed explanation of each option. That's another thing where once in a while an AI will forget that. Chat been great about doing this, so is Claude. So I'm tending to want to blame Gemini. And you go, hey, you forgot to explain the wrong answers, you know? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then wait. Format and bias, but in a clear and concise format, blah, 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 and avoid any bias. Yeah. Now, the constraints. They're challenging enough to test your understanding, but not overly convoluted. A neutral and objective tone, and once again, a reminder. Sometimes you got to remind them, you know. And this is new. So if you've taken my class before, these are new prompts. Instead of predefining how many, I just ask me. So that's pretty cool now. And they behave differently. I noticed when you do it to Meta AI, it actually says, there are 8 domains. Why don't you select one of them or something else? So it gives you the menu. Awesome. All right. So let's try a couple. Oh, I wanted you to see this too. This is later, more advanced, but if you want to do trending stuff, I have test level for this one exam to give a summary of the overall performance, and you could plug this in later. You don't have to have it all at once, right? Recommending further areas, and then track and compare the results of multiple exams over time. This means you're maintaining the same chat session. So probably going to work a lot better in the pay versions over time. Highlight any improvements or declines in specific domains and question types. Provide insights and overall trends, helping the student understand the progress trajectory. Include recommendations based on these trends. Focus on areas that require consistent improvement and refer to free standards and guidelines from NIST, the Internet Engineering Task Force, the IEEE, OWASP, and other recognized authorities on the subject you feel would benefit the student most for the exam based on their performance. You're not going to get that anywhere else. Come on. All right, but let's just start off simple because we're just going to do this. Copy. And we'll go right to. Actually, I want you to see how it works in anything. So I'll launch it in Gemini. Oh, it was just updated. I wonder how it behaves now. But the same prompt works everywhere. Though we'll get to recognize the accents and behaviors of the various LLMs too. So if your kid's using AI to do their work, not only will you be able to say this was AI, you'll be able to say this was obviously Claude. All right. Okay, so he's ready to best tailor your questions. Please tell me which domain you'd like or concept and how many questions. Now let's start with 10 questions and we'll start with domain one. 10 questions. Just thinking. A small startup company is developing a new mobile application and wants to ensure they incorporate security into the design from the beginning. With limited resources, which of the following would be most effective first step in their secure software development lifecycle? All right, does that look like domain one? It could be related, but it also overlaps with software. Well, let's read it. Implement excessive. I don't think I want to do anything yet. Hire a dedicated security consultant.
Wanna, sorry, Larry, does anyone want to take a shot at this? Maybe put some answers in the chat.
Yeah, that's. I was waiting, and I saw some chat. Nick says conduct threat modeling to identify potential vulnerabilities. One of the things I always teach my students is always think before you act. Act, 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 think. I'm going to go with C. Well, why would we be required to attend it? We got to, that might be, that's not a wrong answer. I don't think I want to implement, but if you're developing a new application and you want security into the design, which of the following would be the most effective first step? That's a good point. So D is making sure they're smart ahead of time. C says the very important practice of threat modeling when you're developing the application. But wouldn't that happen as a second step? So in an SDLC, I'm going to not answer it. And SDLC isn't uh, threat modeling um, after initiation. Oh, we know what it could be. Is threat model? Let's do this way. It might actually be part of like assurance requirements. And in the SDLC, you have planning. It sounds like they're already planning. In an SDLC is threat modeling, uh, not the uh, in the first step. In the first step after planning, uh, it is in analysis. Whoops, hey, analysis. Uh, so training, uh, D might have been assumed. I like C, but D is not wrong. And this is when something you can't do with anyone else's practices. No, I said D. C is, I did say C is best. You're absolutely right about the importance of threat modeling early. However, let's clarify your answer and why C. I did say C. I like C. All right. These are behavior things, but you see how that worked? Something you can't do on a real exam or someone else's, static exam. All right, let's go next. Actually, let's run the whole thing in Claude. Let's do new code. Claude, I find, is least likely to hallucinate, but it's actually kind of like staunch old fashioned. It won't even take on to new ideas because it's afraid that, oh, you kids today. All right. So and now it's presenting me. I'll help you with a practice that aligns with the content outline, but I need two pieces of information from you, right? So, which is the domain or things and how many questions. And we'll do the same thing, domain one. And let's just do 5 questions and see what happens. Oh, Nick, it's in the let me share that with you. Sorry. I've been meaning to do that. Actually, let me pause my screen share so people don't necessarily see my directory structure. But let me get I'll give you this presentation, and I'm sorry, I meant to get that to you. And if you have the CISSP download, if you've already paid for the thing, it's in the root directory of the thing. It's called AI Whispering. But if not, I'll just share this one file with you. Share, come on, I need my, there we go. Copy, put it in our text, paste. Boom. Oh my gosh, I thought I recognized that name, Nick. Welcome back. Oh, oh, it's a whole new ball game. No, Arpita's got me much more aligned with the the world in general. She's been fantastic. No, no, it's a whole new ball game. So it's right there, and you can cut and paste it. All right, so we're gonna go with 5 questions. All right, question one, scenario based. A multinational corporation is implementing a new security governance framework. During the planning phase, the CISO discovers that certain security practices are legal in their US headquarters are prohibited by privacy laws in their European offices. The most appropriate initial action for the CISO to take is of these answers, you certainly can't break local laws. I always say just because the national speed limit might be whatever 55 doesn't mean you do it in my local street here. Apply the strictest. No, you might be losing access to various opportunities just because it might be A looks better to me than that, and then C create a unified. No, again, well then based on the U.S., then you're breaking laws. No, C can't be right. Create a unified security standard. Nah, it sounds a lot like. C to a C. I'm sorry, to identify all applicable. Well, that's nice. C sounds like a good start, but it's just one issue. Why am I initiating such a big reevaluation of everything? So I think A is the better answer. And it wanted C. Usually what you try to do is tailor, you have a general, like in an application to the ISO, you have an organizational normative framework. You have an organizational framework that you use and tailor it to specific regions if they say you can't do that here. And C, uh, has you do it more comprehensively like that. The problem with this is it didn't just say, and I could see why that I could agree with them. It didn't say for Europe. It said for each regional office. Oh, and now it's like I'm doing it everywhere and I have inconsistencies everywhere. I read this as for the European office. So my bad. I agree with them. I think at this point of these answers, and I'm going to tell it just that. And it's this is how you get smarter. I go, I I agree, but 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 C seemed to go out of scope when it referenced um, all global operations. All right, let's just see. But that I can see why he said it. You're right that C could be interpreted as going beyond the immediate scope of the U.S. URSS. So this highlights the exam. When two answers seem partially correct, look for the one that's more precisely matches the scope. And I agree with them. I still say uh, might be more appropriate. So it's almost willing to give me. Now, in these situations, I like to point out that because the CISSP is an ISO accredited exam. For it to make this 17024 certification, um, they have to have the exam tested by people that don't work for them. This isn't like a Microsoft test where everything favors Microsoft and you master it because Microsoft said so or whatever, or a Cisco. This is vendor neutral. This is an international test. Anybody who tells you, yeah, but the ISC square has their own answers to stuff. No, they don't. No, they absolutely do not have their own answers. They're trying to get as unbiased as possible. So when they do these, they have people take the exam and a question weight, whether or not that question is really important or doesn't count much, is based on how many of those people agreed with that answer. So because even we were able to talk it out, it's not like how many bits are in an IP address. There's only one answer to that, you know. So whatever they're debatable like that, don't worry about the real exam. It probably doesn't weigh as much on the exam either. All right, I'm going to keep this up for when we come back from a break. I want to do another set. I forgot I don't have a full hour here, so we're just going to do one more set of five for ChatGPT, and then we'll start a new one. Oops, a new new chat with Fora. And then we'll come back. We'll take a break. I'd like to see you play with it though. So I gave you the link. We're going to take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back and I'd like to see, people told me that how it worked. All right. Oh, I gave him my Dropbox. I gave you the, he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, Larry. What are you saying here? Oh, sorry. Nothing. Forget I said it. You know, sometimes a little stupid like thing like that can, could actually, oh no, can actually throw the whole thing off and you start a new chat. I'll risk it. Chat GPT is better. It's going to keep throwing in LinkedIn and in the thing. All right, so let's pick and we'll do, we're going to keep this up when we come back. So I'll just see how many it could do. But we'll do 20. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll do all domains for this one and 20 questions. But we're only going to try one right now. That's true, Nick. And C involved in planning. Yeah, that's another one. A company is conducting a risk assessment for its new cloud-based application. As the information security manager, you need to prioritize risks for mitigation based on their impact and likelihood. Which approach would best help the company effectively allocate resources to address these risks?